I think in these times, these turbulent times, it's especially important to gather ourselves and to support each other in the Dharma. So, this is a little roadmap of what we'll be doing. First, we'll have a guided meditation. And the topic for today is grasping and letting go. That's really encompasses the whole of the Dharma. Because the Buddha taught that suffering, which is a part of life, comes from grasping, from clinging. And yet there is an end to suffering. And one of the avenues, an essential one, is letting go. And it's very hard, it's very human to grasp. And we can let go incrementally, bit by bit. Just like when we meditate, we keep going back to the breath. As we practice and follow the path, slowly we learn to let go of attachments. Maybe not all at once, but bit by bit, breath by breath. So after the meditation, we'll have mindful movement with Emily. And then I will share about our topic, about grasping and letting go. And after that, we will share as a community. So I invite you to take a comfortable and alert posture. It might help to sit upright. To allow space in the vertebrae and the torso. To widen the chest, open the heart. Close the eyes or just look softly downward. That helps focus the mind. And you might take 3 somewhat longer and slower breaths. Feeling the air expand the chest and the torso. On the inhale and on the exhale, you might feel a sense of relaxation, letting go, letting go. Taking your time. Allowing the breath to massage the inside of the body. Appreciating that this same air crossed the ocean, wafted over the Andes, the Himalayas. It's shared by all. It was cleansed by the trees and the foliage. Which in return takes our exhalations and uses them in a beautiful reciprocity. So breathing naturally and feeling the feet on the floor, the sit bones on the chair or cushion. And feeling held by the earth, by gravity, all of us together, citizens of planet Earth. And using the breath as the anchor, noticing the places that move with the breath. And if the breath doesn't work for you, you might notice sounds or sensations in the feet or hands. And now aware of the breath, inviting the attention to the face. On the in breath, feeling the face. On the out breath, relaxing the face. Feeling the eyes on the in breath. Relaxing the eyes. Feeling the cheeks on the in breath. Letting go on the out breath. Feeling the tongue and mouth and jaw on the in-breath. Releasing on the out-breath. Feeling the shoulders, breathing in, breathing out, releasing the shoulders. Feeling the chest on the in-breath, releasing the chest on the out-breath. Aware of the belly on the in-breath, releasing the belly on the out-breath. Aware of the back on the in-breath, releasing the back on the out-breath. Now, generally feeling the body as a field of sensation, and allowing any sensations that arise, allowing constriction, discomfort, tingling, pleasurable feelings. Allowing it all to come and go. And when the mind wanders, just bringing it back to the body, to the present moment, without judgment. Just allowing whatever arises in the body, in the heart, and in the mind. Just being, breathing into whatever is felt in the body, heart, and mind. And now the invitation is to call to your mind and to your heart or relationship. Could be with a child, a parent, a friend, a colleague, a partner, where you wanted things to be a way other than what they were. Perhaps you didn't want them to change from the way they were, or you did. Where it was difficult to allow for what was in this relationship. You resisted the way things were. You wanted it to be another way. Just bringing to your heart and mind and body that experience. Feeling into it as you sit here. Making space for it. Perhaps being curious about it. Just noticing. And if there is judgment toward yourself, just noticing that. And sensing or imagining that you can let go of that judgment just for now and be with that experience, feeling it in the heart and body. Is there a sense of holding on to something? What does that feel like? What does wanting things to be a certain way feel like in the body? Or perhaps it's a sense of pushing away, not liking the way that it is. Can you identify where you feel this in the body, this grasping or pushing away? Is it possible to very tenderly make space for that feeling? Opening space so it can just be exactly the way it is, without judgment. Breathing into it and into the space that holds it. Is there anything underneath this sense of grasping or pushing away? Is there a feeling? Perhaps it's fear, self-protection, or some other kind of wanting. Just exploring it with kind curiosity. Respecting this feeling. Nothing you feel is wrong. Is it possible to soften the body around where you feel this? Just making even more space. Can you sense or imagine the fibers of the heart opening, softening, even if just subtly, softening toward this experience? And perhaps the heart is softening around the unfolding of your life. It may not be in your plans or what you planned, but it is an unfolding organically. Allowing it all. Welcome back. So now Emily will have a break for mindful movement and to take care of any needs you have. And then I will share about letting go.
So I invite you to stand and shift your weight from one foot to the other. And just slowly notice the ground beneath your feet. And then allowing the arms to come up, swaying from one side, maybe even lifting one heel as you shift to the other side, being deliberate and focused, just as we were in meditation, to how the body responds to attention and awareness. And then open up wide, embracing the space you're in. And then lifting the arms up. Exhale, soften the shoulders, softening the elbows. And then reach that left arm higher. Exhale down. Inhale as you reach the other hand higher. Exhale down. And grasp your left wrist in your right hand, extending from the base of the left hip out over to the right. Resting your head against the left arm to support your neck, being here with this breath in, this exhale here, and then come up to center, switching wrists, left hand on the right wrist, extending up with the inhale over to the left, softening that left elbow. Breathing into the right rib cage, exhale, soften. Inhale up, float the arms down to roll the shoulders. Finding your feet, aligning, and then rolling your shoulders the other way. And we'll come up into cactus arms. Exhale, float the hands down. Inhale, rising up. Exhale, floating the hands down. And then drawing the hands up, extend your arms, flip that left palm up, turn the right thumb down. And on an inhale, switch to the other side. The left thumb is down, looking at the right palm. Inhale to return to the left. Inhale to return to the right. Drop your arms down, roll your shoulders individually, rolling them the other way. And then extending your arms, right wrist on top of the left, clasping your hands. Find a focal point. This is our constraint. And we're going to draw a sideways figure 8, the infinity symbol. So find a direction to start, looping, just one circle, but it crosses within itself to become infinity, keeping the eyes in one place. Come to center. Now allow your eyes to move with your arms as you draw again the infinity symbol, but noticing your back, noticing the freedom of little muscles as you draw. Come to center, drop your arms down, and then just windmill, becoming a being that allows the wind to turn it, windmill the other way. And come to center, draw your arms back out, left wrist on top of the right, and let's move freely. To draw upon the infinite possibilities within our bodies, within our hearts, all connected with focused attention. Come to center and switch, shifting the other direction, finding the places where you feel a slight release, and then come to center, drop the arms down. Draw your arms up as if you had beach balls underneath them. Exhale down. And now let's come into a forward bend, and please take care of your bodies. We're placing our hands at the hip crease and folding, shifting the hips back, extending the spine perpendicular to the floor. Breathing in, breathing out. You might even feel your spine lengthening. And then dropping the hands down to above the knees. This may be where you wish to stay. Or drop your chin to your chest, dropping the arms down, lengthening towards the floor. And using the energy from the feet, from the earth, to support you in this forward bend. As you bend at the hip crease, the spine lengthening, space coming into the vertebrae. Breathing into the back of the body. Exhale. Oh. And then drawing the hands up above your knees. Tuck your tailbone under, softening the knees, slowly stacking the vertebrae, rising up with an inhale, drawing the shoulders up around the ears. Exhale, soften, coming in to awareness, drawing your hands above your head. Finding the midline with your palms together, drawing your hands to your heart. And then turning this energy, this awareness out to everyone here. And turning your hands down to appreciate the earth. And we'll be exhaling up. So whoosh. And down to the heart, take a bow. Thank you for your practice. Thank you, Catherine, for setting up a live awareness for this movement.
Thank you so much, Emily. We appreciate you. So today we're going to explore grasping and letting go. And it's actually important during this time where the external world is challenging. It's important to kind of lean on the fundamentals. And it's really all about being present, because if we're not present with what is coming up for us in light of what's happening out there, then we're just operating at a remove. We're not in touch with our hearts. The grief we feel or the worry we feel is unprocessed. It's not leavened by wisdom. And then we will react instead of respond. We'll be more effective in taking action, responding, if we're in touch with how we feel and grounded in our deepest values. In that way, that's the only way, by being present. That is the way that we can comfort ourselves, by cultivating qualities like self-compassion. So being in the present moment. The Four Noble Truths tell us that there is suffering, there's pervasive suffering in this life, and it is caused by clinging and grasping and pushing away what is. And there's an end to suffering, and the end is living an ethical life and practicing, cultivating the mind and wisdom. And so today, we'll talk about the end of suffering, about how to let go. And Thankasaro Bhikkhu says, we're actually lucky that clinging is suffering, that our suffering comes from clinging, because that's something we do. And therefore, we have the ability to lessen it and ultimately eliminate it. We don't have to wait for outside conditions to be perfect in order to stop suffering, because suffering is caused by something we do. It's caused by grasping. And daily life gives us constant opportunities for grasping. It is the way that we are born. It's the way we're made. Whenever we have a preference for something, whenever we're for or against something, there's probably some element of grasping. That is just human. The heart and mind can land on almost anything to grasp. An example is you're planning on having a picnic in this beautiful spring weather with your loved ones, and you wake up and it's a rainy day. So all your plans have to change. You go to a museum And if you can't let go of that idea you had about the picnic and the sun and the blanket on the grass, you're going to suffer. You might be aversive to being in a museum because it's not the picnic. So that just encapsulates what happens in thousands of permutations throughout our day. And the way that we grasp onto ideas of ourselves, our self-image, those are probably the hardest, or at least some of the hardest things to let go of. We spend our entire lives constructing a self. We're encouraged to do that. And our reality is centered around that. So we, go to school, we achieve, we try, we explore to figure out what our life should be centered on. Maybe we get a partner, have kids, and all that is in service to this selfhood. And it can be very beautiful and meaningful. And yet, when something changes, it can be extremely painful. I remember my first meditation retreat when I became aware of a lot of thoughts that were very petty and mean-spirited and judgmental about people in my life, people on the retreat, the food on the retreat. And I had never really come face to face with my thoughts in that way. And I was devastated because I had cared very deeply about and believed very deeply that I was a good person. And oh my God, I was so bratty. And that just reminds me how unless we're exposed to these teachings, we are really conditioned to believe that we are one thing, a solid thing. And if there's a part, we see a part of ourselves that is unappealing, it can be devastating because we don't think of ourselves as a moving, ever-changing stream of life created by changing conditions. Our culture does not really conceptualize a human being as somebody, as a changing conditions that can be cultivated and made beautiful. And so if we're not focused on that more subtle understanding, we can be very invested in our image, the image we have of ourselves and that we present to the world. And yet, of course, an image, a life, financial success, professional success, it can bring some satisfaction, but not the deepest kind of happiness. I used to be a lawyer. And at times I was kind of puffed up about that. And then when I stopped being a lawyer, that was a big adjustment. And I had to adjust. And it was only looking and feeling into deeper qualities and a deeper dimension of life that was satisfying. And in this area, this mid-Atlantic area, it's particularly acute. Can you imagine going to a dinner party and when you're asked what you do or did for a profession, and you will be asked, saying, I'm a floor sweeper. I do a beautiful job. I so enjoy making things clean and healthy for people. It makes me really happy. I feel really present when I'm cleaning the floors. How do people react? How would they in our society? Status and hierarchy are deeply ingrained in us, and yet they cause suffering. Maybe something changes in one's life so that you lose that profession or you lose that status. Any attachment brings suffering. And our lives are so full of it, and our society is constructed so that the highest aims involve attachment. The highest good our society conceives of involves things that we can be attached to. So I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. And imagine a world, living in a world where wisdom is the highest value. Everyone reveres wisdom. Aging is not feared. It's looked forward to. It's almost considered a magical process because it brings the jewels of experience and perspective. It gives a kind of judgment that isn't available to people who haven't lived as long. So everyone wants to talk to elders. They're the coolest people to have at a dinner party. Everyone knows that sure, some things about aging can be physically difficult, but that's nothing compared to what's gained. That's nothing compared to the emotional turmoil and delusion that comes from being young or even middle-aged, where you're fueled by your ego or your hormones. And what would it be like to grow up in such a world? Where every passing year, instead of bringing regret and the sense of an ending, brings curiosity and even anticipation, where people don't cling to looking young. So I imagine if people didn't grasp onto being young, they would we would all cling to something else. But the exercise may reveal how really kind of arbitrary our preferences are. They're just views. We have the view that being young is preferable. It doesn't mean it's true. Our preferences are like scaffolding for our grasping. And we are inundated with preferences all day. There's the ebb and flow of our moods in that ride on preferences. The weather outside, is it sunny or overcast? And how are we affected by that? And then the more profound aspects of our lives, like our work, the satisfaction we get from our work, or the boredom we get from our work, the emotional tenor of a relationship. We can grip and attach to almost anything. The poet W.H. Auden wrote, "Love requires an object, but this varies so much. Almost, I imagine, anything will do. When I was a child, I loved a pumping engine, thought it every bit as beautiful as you." So even when we meditate, and I guess especially when we meditate, we have judgments and attachments. And that's one of the benefits because we can see how that works. For instance, we have a meditation and we are bright and alert. And we feel at the end, oh, that was really great. I was so concentrated. I'm really getting deep in my practice. And then the next day, we're sleepy or restless. And we don't like ourselves so much after that. We judge, I should be farther along than that. Or I didn't try hard enough. In both scenarios, we're identifying with our experience and we're preferring one over the other. And it's shading our happiness We want it. We want our sit. We want our minds to be a certain way. We're not accepting that we and our mind changes as conditions change. We're like a flowing river. So it's really important to remember that all this is human. We don't want to lose what's beautiful and meaningful. It's okay to cherish those sits when our minds are concentrated and clear. And yet, when we grasp and don't accept change or just don't accept the way things are, it's extremely painful. When my children were young, I found it hard to accept them growing up at times. I remember I was chaperoning at a middle school dance, and my oldest daughter had gotten dressed for it with her girlfriends. And when I first saw her at this dance, she was wearing her friend's tight bell bottoms, and her curly hair was straightened, and her eyes were like popping out because she had makeup on for the first time. And she was just somebody I didn't know. She was my girl, but in an instant, she was grown up. And I remember the complex emotions. I felt shocked, and I felt angry she was growing up and wanted to grow up. And I even felt just a little bit betrayed. And that's grasping. You know, we fear. We Part of underneath grasping is very often fear, and perhaps that was operating. I knew that my child was safe with me and was safe as a child, and I cherished the relationship that we had. And so that kind of grasping is common in so many relationships. Many people stay in an unhealthy relationship or marriage hoping that it will change or go back to the way it was. People change and we resist that. But we don't own other people. We don't own our children. We don't own our partners, our parents. And of course, we can't control anything about other people. And grasping leads to possessiveness, that is the kiss of death for a relationship. You've probably observed that yourself. Our opinions and views are also very fertile grounds for grasping. I know a lot of my friends think that their grown-up children shouldn't be so into texting. They want to talk on the phone with their children. They say, when I was their age, I talked to my parents every day or every week. And so a month will go by and they have no contact with their children because their children just want to text. So that they're letting their view of the way it should be get in the way of communicating. And I understand it. You can probably think of other examples. So, how do we know when we're grasping? Rob Burbea says there's actually one very simple rule of thumb. Sooner or later, it causes suffering. That's what attachment does. You're not really free to respond in an open way because you're too constricted. You want things to be different. Why is it so hard to let go? Well, it's a bit like entering new territory. When you have a preference, especially a strong preference, like, keeping a relationship the way it is, it's like allowing it to be different, allowing it to be a new way, a different way, is like going into new territory. And our human heart and mind has sort of gotten pinned to that old way or to that idea of what we want. And the mind has narrowed onto it. It's uncomfortable to go somewhere new. And what exactly is letting go? The Buddhist word for that is renunciation, which is not a word that's very popular now. People think of it as medieval. So, using the image of a hand, if you're holding a stick, if you're really gripping it, grasping, the hand isn't free to do anything else. It's really stuck in the gripping. And that's what happens when the mind is clinging to views of how it should be, or the heart is clinging to a certain way a relationship should be, or we're clinging to the old life we had in different circumstances. And so in any kind of clinging or pushing away, the heart mind is constricted. It's not free. Last year, a difficult personal situation arose for me that was really hard for me to accept. I wanted things to be the way they were before this problem arose. And the symptom I noticed over and over was that my mind persisted in just going through this labyrinth of thought as if that was going to change anything. And I never had any new idea or insight. My mind just kept running around in circles. And I didn't like it. And I realized that the more I resisted this holding on and clinging, and the more I judged it, the more stubborn it was. So I practiced allowing it to be with self-compassion, and it softened. And that's like, I think that is dropping the stick, because being aversive to dukkha, to the suffering of grasping, is reinforcing it. When I could accept that this is happening and this is hard, It's naturally hard for humans to accept the loss of something. Then my heart was open. It opened enough so that I could, it was like when the hand drops the stick and now it can, hold a baby or fix a bicycle or bake a cake. And I found that I was more free to just to move on and to, but it was first acceptance. That was the key thing. Pema Chodron says something really interesting about this. She says, our nostalgia for wanting to stay in a protected, limited, petty world is insane. Once you begin to get the feeling of how big the world is and how vast our potential for experiencing life is, then you really begin to understand renunciation. When we sit in meditation, we feel our breath as it goes in and out. And then our minds wander off into all kinds of stories and fabrications. And every time we're willing to let the storyline go, and every time we're willing to let go at the end of that out breath, that's fundamental renunciation. Learning how to let go of holding on and holding back. And so, if we can recognize the suffering of that, have compassion for the ouch of it, cultivate self compassion, it will soften. The holding will soften, and we'll be able to open up to the beauty and the potential that we have.